Norm Van Brocklin and the rest of the players came up to me and told me that, everyone makes a mistake.
Picked up by Jim Marshall, who's running the wrong way.
I think I said at the time, yeah, but I made mine in front of 40 million people.
Work your tail off. 4 quarters now, 4 quarters. Let's go. Number 3, Brett, number 3.
First round selection.
This is no countdown of ordinary mistakes. This is a tour through football's twilight zone.
He fumbles the football. Doesn't seem fair.
Jimmy Orr's wide open in the end zone, but they threw down the middle and intercepted.
Where mistakes change lives.
Here it comes. It's another bad snap. Game is over.
It becomes a defining moment. It becomes a career. Reputations in sports aren't always fair.
Failure is part of the game.
Marshall is running the wrong way.
Infamy is the price to be paid. These are the NFL's top 10 foul-ups.
The number 10 foul-up of all time, Dave Hampton's quest for 1,000 yards.
In the early years of the franchise, the Atlanta Falcons fouled up a lot. Rooting for them was hazardous to your health.
The Atlanta Falcons were a really bad team in the early 70s.
Winning was so hard to come by in Atlanta.
But running back Dave Hampton was a breath of fresh air. In 1972, he was poised to become the Falcons' first 1,000-yard rusher.
Dave Hampton was a solid back in a different era of football. Not a lot of people rushed for 1,000 yards. Certainly not a lot of players on bad teams. You had O.J. Simpson, you had Jim Brown, you had Jim Taylor. You had big names who rushed for 1,000 yards in the 14-game schedule.
Back in those days, 1,000 yards really meant something.
In the final game of the 1972 season, Hampton broke the 1,000-yard mark, but would soon fall victim to our number 10 foul-up.
That carry, Dave Hampton now has 1,001 yards for the season, and the Falcons finally have a 1,000-yard rush.
And he gains the 1,000. We stop the game. We celebrate the game. Give him the ball.
It looked pretty foolish where I sat. The idea that you would stop the game, present him with the game ball to the other team standing across the line, look and say, give him the game ball. We'll give him the game ball. Just let him carry it again. But I guess they were so happy to have something to celebrate in those days of the Falcons, they'd have stopped it for anything.
They did give me the ball at that time, and I never thought it would, I would just go on from there.
Hampton takes the pitch. He drops it. He's picked it up. He's going to be run out of bounds. A loss of 6 yards. He's back under 1,000.
His next carry went back to 995 yards. He was never given the ball again because they were losing that final game.
Pitch out I should have handled, and I didn't. From that point on, I didn't touch the ball after that.
Later on in the locker room, one of the Falcon players said, the way our luck's been running, I wouldn't be surprised if the league made him give the ball back.
Football isn't really set up to ensure that records keep going, streaks occur, or milestones are reached. He played real football after that play that he got 1,000 yards, and sometimes in real football, running backs go backwards.
Well, I visited him at the institution recently. When they do let him out of the padded cell, this is a joke. He had a very good sense of humor about it, really.
Of course, they've had it in the highlight film.
Dave Hampton, like the Atlanta Falcons, ended the season just a tantalizing step or so away.
Relive that, every time that was shown.
Hampton relived our number 10 foul-up the next year. He entered 1973's final game needing just 87 yards for 1,000, but fell 3 yards and a cloud of dust short.
I still needed about 10 or 20 yards for it, and they knew I was coming, and they stacked their defense up to stop me, and they did. You get to the time looking over his shoulder to see what's going on.
In 1975, this Ahab in cleats finally caught his whale.
Again, another year, the last game, trying to get this 1,000 yards. They call a play for me. I think I gained like 15 yards or so, and it took me over 1,000 yards. And immediately I was taken out of the game to make sure that that wouldn't happen again.
What's the key to staying off our list of foul-ups? no matter how bad things get, don't lose your head.
If this costs the Saints, this is going to be just pathetic on Turley's part.
In 2002, Dwayne Rudd cost the Browns a game by throwing his helmet.
Dwayne Rudd took his helmet off and threw it when he thought that they had Trent Green down and the game was over.
Rudd throwing his helmet is going to give the Chiefs an opportunity for a field goal here. Dwayne Rudd goes down as making one of the biggest mistakes in Cleveland Browns history.
But as Gus Frerotte found out, keeping your helmet on can't prevent a bonehead move either.
Bang! Hits his head right into the cushion. The diagnosis after the x-rays was a jammed neck, and we just saw how he did it.
The number 9 foul-up of all time. Thurman Thomas loses his helmet before the Super Bowl.
Kenneth Davis is in at running back, not Thurman Thomas.
Is he hurt? Is something wrong? They got introduced. He should be there. What's going on?
Here's this guy who's the best all-around running back in the game. Here are the Bills, who are ready to finally win the Super Bowl. Why is Thurman Thomas not on the field? This is not possible.
The Bills and the Redskins are getting ready to get it on in Super Bowl 26.
Yeah, they're back in the Super Bowl. They won't lose 2 of these in a row. They're too good. That offense is incredible.
The Bills, because they're more of a household name, came in with more hype and more expectations, like, hey, this is going to be the year that they actually get it done.
So much for that.
So why is Thomas responsible for our number 9 foul-up?
Their most valuable offensive player couldn't find his helmet. It's not the way you want to start the day.
The one piece of equipment you need to go on the field, which isn't already attached to your body, and you can't find it, you do this when you're a 4th grader. You do this as an 8th grader. It just shouldn't happen.
Of all the days to forget your helmet. Dude, where's your head? You know, where's your head? Where's your helmet? What are you doing?
Thurman had a tradition of leaving his helmet on the 40-yard line. Harry Connick Jr. was going to sing the national anthem. One of his band members was coming out there to set up. He moved the helmet.
Thomas soon found his helmet, but after he committed our number 9 foul-up, the Bills never found their groove.
It was downhill from Thurman not being able to find his helmet to get on the field.
Some of it's bad luck, but some of it you bring it on yourself. And if you're this multi-dimensional hybrid running back and you're about to make the first impact on the game and you're going out there with Kelly and Marv Levy and you're taking on Joe Gibbs, you have your helmet.
Bill Polian, the general manager of the Bills at the time, just went ballistic. Recently, in Indianapolis, where Bill, of course, is now president of the Colts, Harry Connick was performing, and Bill's wife wanted to take him to the concert. Bill said, I'm not going to go see Harry Connick play. I hate that guy. He ruined our Super Bowl.
The number 8 foul-up of all time. Phil Luckett's bad luck.
If ever a referee was jinxed, it was Phil Luckett. The hex began on Thanksgiving Day in 1998 when he turned an overtime coin toss into a controversy.
Call it plays in the air. Heads is the call. He said heads, it is a tails.
I was actually on my way to my sister's house for a nice Thanksgiving calm dinner.
Oh, he said tails.
When I got to her house, I was greeted with, "You've got issues."
Heads is the call.
It certainly sounded like that Bettis said tails.
He said heads.
But Phil went with the call of heads.
The Lions took the ball and never gave it back.
Hanson's kick is on its way. That kick is long, high, and good.
How hard is it to toss a coin in the air, to listen to the actual call?
What's the call?
And to look down and say heads or tails?
Our number 8 foul-up was picked apart frame by frame.
It wasn't until sound was really amplified that it does sound like that maybe he started with something else.
Call it plays in the air. Heads is the call.
Well, you heard kind of a head tails.
He said heads tails.
Heads tails. Or tails heads.
Call it plays in the air. Heads is the call.
But many still have their doubts.
The man standing right next to Jerome Bettis didn't actually hear what I did, sitting in my couch 1,500 miles away.
Heads is the call.
And he didn't get it right.
stayed with that call, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all.
Phil Luckett had officiated a lot of games before that. You didn't think of his name, you didn't think of his face, and then all you thought about after that was bewilderment.
The saga of our number 8 foul-up didn't end in Detroit. In New York the next week, Luckett's notoriety only grew larger. With the Jets trailing late in the fourth quarter, the Thanksgiving coin toss became last week's news.
Quarterback draw, Testaverde to the goal line. Touchdown!
Quarterback sneak diving for the end zone, well short of the goal. And all of a sudden, an official from the far sideline. I think he came out of the locker room. He was up in the stands having a Coca-Cola and a hot dog with a fan, but he came running toward the middle of the field with his arms upraised. Touchdown.
The Jets win. This is the same crew which botched the Thanksgiving flip of the coin between Pittsburgh and Detroit.
It wasn't Phil. That really was not his call, but he happened to be the referee, so he just was kind of snake bit. Seattle's playoff chances basically went down the tube.
And it cost Dennis Erickson his job. He gets fired at the end of the season.
That was probably the play that brought back replay.
That blown call brought back instant replay. But our number 8 foul-up kept replaying the same kinds of controversies, even when he made the right call.
He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
Will they review the backwards pass to make sure it's a backwards pass?
It's totally a forward pass. No question about it. It's physics.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. It was a lateral.
The Music City Miracle was subjected to more computer analysis than the Zapruder film. The conclusion? Luckett was right.
I realized that it was at least parallel, if not a little bit backwards, and really, really, really an incredible call.
In 2001, Luckett asked to work games as a back judge, but even there, he always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Bears horn.
Why does this always happen to Phil Luckett? Kickers don't have it easy. Mike Vanderjagt had the highest accuracy percentage of any kicker in NFL history.
High enough, and it's now it's all good.
But in the playoffs, he was Mike Vanderchoke. Trailing by 7 in Jacksonville, the 2003 Saints needed a last-second miracle to keep their playoff hopes alive.
He's going to the 35, and he's still on his feet, and he throws the ball. That's a forward lateral. His man's got it. He's still running. Deuce McAllister's got it. He's on his feet at the 20. Now he's throwing it back. It's caught. There goes the back into the end zone. Are you kidding?
All sorts of incredible plays along the line for the Saints to stay alive, pending the extra point by John Carney. No! He missed the extra point wide right.
Scott Norwood missed wide right, but it was a long shot.
It was almost 50 yards on grass. That was no short kick.
Sometimes kickers don't even have a chance to foul it up.
Romo at the 9. Romo can't get the spot down. This is an unbelievably heartbreaking loss.
The number 7 foul-up of all time, Garo Yepremian's gap.
Garo Yepremian never saw a professional football game until this year.
As a key member of the undefeated 72 Dolphins, kicker Garo Yepremian was perfectly strange.
That was a fairly stoic, business-like team. Garo was comic relief.
Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home?
Asked him where he attended college, and he said Bald State.
I don't see there's any setback playing with long hair. I've done it without any hair, and it doesn't bother me.
If anybody was going to commit the most famous blunder in Super Bowl history, it was fitting that it was Garo Yepremian.
With the Dolphins on the brink of completing their perfect season, Yepremian was about to commit our number 7 foul-up.
Prior to the Super Bowl game, my ball wasn't really taking the trajectory I liked. I kept on hitting line drives, but being the consummate professional that I am, I didn't go to Coach Shula and say, Coach, today we shouldn't try any field goals. We scored 2 touchdowns, and I kicked the extra point, and it was really nice. The ball was going very high, so forgot about that low trajectory kick. With about 4 minutes left in the game, Coach Shula called me over and said, 42-yarder, go and kick it.
How
42-yard attempt by Yepremian. Snap, set down. The kick is blocked. Rolling loose on the field. It is picked up by Garrow. He tries to throw a pass. Deflected in the air. Grabbed by Bass. 40, 35, 30. He's going to score. Damn! Touchdown.
Lined up. The snap was perfect. I kicked the ball. Line drive. Hit one of the linemen. The ball bounced all over the place. I picked it up. I figured this is a negative. I'll take this and turn it into a positive. The ball slipped out of my hands, went up in the air. Gravity didn't even help me. The ball is coming towards me. I said if I bat it out of bounds, I'll be safe. So I'm going like this. I hit the ball. Mike Bass picked it up, went for a touchdown.
What in the hell is Garrow doing? I couldn't believe my eyes. And then, oh, sugar. Mike Bass has got the football, and they're going to score. We've been dominating this game from start to finish, and they're one touchdown behind.
Jake Scott looked him right in the eye and said, Garrow, if we lose this game, I'm going to kill you.
It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It was the ugliest thing anyone had ever seen. This was the worst thing that could happen for kickers for generations. Kickers didn't look like they belonged on the football field at all, regardless of the helmet and pads, because of Garrow Yepremian.
Come on. Who let him off the bus? It seems funny now. It seems cute. If they had lost that game because of that play, nobody would be smiling about it 30 years later.
Thank God we won the game.
The Dolphins have won Super Bowl VII and completed the greatest season in NFL history.
When you think of the Miami Dolphins, the undefeated season, what's the image that comes to your mind? It's not Larry Zonka. It's not the no-name defense. It's Garrow Yepremian's.
The number 6 foul-up of all time. Gary Anderson blows his perfect season.
He will always be known as the guy who was part of screwing up the Vikings' trip to the Super Bowl, even though he had this magnificent season.
In 1998, the Vikings were clear Super Bowl favorites.
Touchdown, Vikings! Bomb downfield to Moss, juggles it. Oh, touchdown!
It's a kind of season where when you come to Metrodome on Sundays, it'd be like you're headed to an amusement park.
They're easily the best team in football.
3 teams have been 15-1 in the history of the National Football League. Give yourselves a round of applause.
At 15-1, the Vikings weren't perfect, but kicker Gary Anderson was. He didn't miss a kick the entire regular season.
Anderson is connected on 46 consecutive field goals.
History of the National Football League, Gary Anderson had the first ever perfect season.
Late in the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl was one kick away.
Gary Anderson, he hasn't missed the field goal since Moses parted the sea.
Let's put him away.
And they have an opportunity here with Gary Anderson to put this game out of reach.
This is the perfect way to end it.
This is a slam dunk.
Anderson has been automatic all season long. He's been perfect on field goal attempts and PATs.
Placement, the kick. It is no good. It missed wide to the left. Unbelievable.
I remember looking up and saying, wow.
Our number 6 foul-up gave the Falcons new life. They tied the game, and in overtime, their Anderson didn't miss.
By Morton Anderson. The kick was good. The Falcons have stolen the thunder from the Vikings. They win it in overtime. It's like getting punched in the gut.
The Vikings should have been in that Super Bowl that year.
It wasn't a 55-yard kick. It wasn't outside. It wasn't cold. And for him to miss, what a tough way for him to be known in this town.
Gary Anderson has missed a field goal for the first time in 2 years. Gary Anderson, he doesn't miss, and yet he misses this field goal.
You up, Gary. You blew history, Gary.
It has become one of the mythic moments in sports history in this town.
For him not to deliver just left you empty.
98 was the season. All the stars had aligned.
When you have the perfect storm that this was, that perfect season, you're a Hall of Fame kicker. You're at home. You're in a dome. You've led the whole game, and you miss. And then you end up losing. It's pretty tough to top all those factors together.
And now, the number 5 foul-up of all time. The Redskins call Rocket Screen in Super Bowl 18.
Anytime there's a play that you know the name of, it means they're infamous plays that you never want to hear again.
In 1983, the Redskins were the defending Super Bowl champs and looked to make it 2 in a row.
I was an MVP of the league. John Riggins had set a rushing record for touchdowns, 24 touchdowns. We scored 541 points.
It was almost a joke. It was like playing your kid in a video game. They were destroying teams. They had beaten the Raiders earlier that year, so you figured, hey, okay, been there, done that.
High snap, he goes up, blocked. It's going to be blocked into the end zone. The Raiders on a chase. It'll be recovered in the end zone. It'll be recovered for a Raider touchdown.
Anything and everything that seemingly could go wrong did go wrong. I mean, the blimp didn't crash, so that's good.
Trailing 14-3 with 12 seconds left in the first half, the Redskins were deep in their own territory, and sideline chaos led to our number 5 foul-up.
I got Theismann, Yak, and linemen. Coaches wanting to do 2 different things. Finally, I said, shut up, Joe. Here's what we're going to do.
Coach Gibbs says, I want to run rocket screen. We had run the play before against the Oakland Raiders. Joe Washington went like 90 yards to help us win that ball game. But I'm thinking, don't you think they know that? This is a place where we've run it before. It's something we like. It's something we do. Everything says that we're going to run rocket screen.
Gibbs went to it in his mental playbook. I think the Raiders probably had it in there too.
I start walking away from the sidelines. I'm about 5 yards onto the field. I turned around and I looked back at him. He pointed at me and he said, run it.
Theismann back, looks off to the left, and he fires it up. They're intercepted. Jack Swarak, touchdown Raiders! I don't believe it! Holy Toledo!
A screen pass, and they looked like they knew it was coming.
When that interception occurred, general consensus in the press box was, oh my God, what was he thinking?
My reaction was, what do you think? Yes! That was my reaction. Sprinting out on the field saying, this is unbelievable.
I cannot believe that the Redskins, back on their own 12-yard line, with 12 seconds to go in the half, would do that.
Drop back, looked like everybody was in zone. Well, what they happened to do is put Jack Squirek one-on-one with Joe Washington. I turn around, the ball just starts to leave my hand, and I see Jack Squirek start to break for him, going, oh, God. I remember the movie Black Sunday, where somebody shoots the ball before, it falls down the ground. I'm praying somebody's up there with a high-powered rifle going to shoot the ball so it hits the ground.
I remember watching that play in Tampa Stadium and just shaking my head and saying, this game is over.
I took the bullet. I was the good soldier. Finally, I walked up to Coach Gibbs at his Youth for Tomorrow dinner. And I said, Coach, I got to tell you something. This has been bothering me for years. That was one of the dumbest calls I've ever heard in my life. I wish the heck I had the guts to change it. But you're the man. I couldn't do that. He said, Joe, you're right. It wasn't a good call, but that was also one of the worst passes I've ever seen as well. And I said, you know what? You're right.
The number 4 foul-up of all time. The Colts and Cowboys turn the Super Bowl into the Blunder Bowl.
The Baltimore Colts versus the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most weird of all football games.
It was just a strange game. It was if Andy Warhol was directing the Three Stooges.
Dick Young wrote a great lead. I don't know whether I've just seen the greatest game I've ever covered or the worst.
That was the worst Super Bowl ever played.
Not all the bungling occurred on the field. You go back to the pregame ceremony, it was supposed to be one of the first flyovers. They didn't practice it enough, so they sang the national anthem, and then everybody's waiting. A minute goes by, 2 minutes go by, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, finally, the Jets come over.
So many things happened in that game, it's a wonder any of us survived it.
With 11 total turnovers, no one was immune to the blunder bug in the Blunder Bowl.
That game looked like the kind of exhibition game we'd send to London in early August so they could see American football. It's just dreadful.
I think a lot of it because the guys put a lot of pressure on themselves.
One mistake leads to another mistake. Oh, jeez. And this tightness starts in each one of them.
I think that's why it was a carnival.
Even when the Colts pulled it together for a touchdown, Rookie kicker Jim O'Brien fouled it up.
The day before the game, O'Brien did not have a good day of practice. He said to me, "Hope they're not counting on me Sunday." He misses the extra point.
He's been slightly erratic at times.
You can imagine what my feelings were the rest of the day about the game coming down to Jim O'Brien.
The Cowboys controlled the second half until they fumbled, and the officials joined in on the foul-up fest.
It was Dave Manders, the Cowboys, that came up with the ball.
Dave Manders has it totally. They gave the ball to the Colts, and we could not believe it.
And to me, that fumble recovery is one of the great mysteries of Super Bowl history.
We scored there, and I think the game's put away, but we didn't. This wasn't going to come down to the team that made the last big play. It was going to come down to who made the last big mistake, and that proved to be the Cowboys.
Gets the pass away down the sideline.
In another set of circumstances, Curtis probably would have tried to run with that ball. But I think the way the game had unfolded, Mike just decided, I got the ball, I'm going to go down, get us the ball here and give us a chance to kick the field goal.
Having heard what O'Brien told me, they're not counting on me Sunday. Well, who are they going to count on?
Our number 4 foul-up had big names making big mistakes.
The kick is up and is long enough.
It was the erratic rookie kicker who was true blue.
And the Baltimore Colts have won the Super Bowl.
Chuck Howley was named Super Bowl MVP and remains the only player from a losing team given that honor.
That told you what a bizarre kind of game it was. Can we honor anyone from the winning team? We can't. We've got to honor this defender because he was the one guy who performed at a level worthy of recognition.
I'm just lucky we won.
Phil Luckett isn't the only man who's fouled up a coin toss.
You don't have to explain anything when we win. Hey, hey!
In 2002, Marty Morningwig had some explaining to do when he took the win in overtime.
The wind is the reason.
I don't care. You don't give up the ball.
The spot is good. He uncoils, delivers the kick, and over in, fighting to win, and it is good! And the Bears have won in overtime.
In the 1962 AFL Championship game, Hank Stram tried to take the win, but Abner Haynes fouled it up.
We will kick to the clock. They're going to kick, yeah.
Abner's boner gave the ball and the win to the Houston Oilers.
Over on that Dallas bench, they're going wild. They don't know what's going on.
The Texans finally got the win in the second overtime and won the game, sparing Haynes from our list.
Abner's boner remains very limp in my memory.
The number 3 foul-up of all time, Leon Lett's letdowns.
I don't think he's ever got the credit he deserved. He's always going to be remembered for his goofs. I mean, you're talking about the biggest stages in the NFL, Thanksgiving Day and the Super Bowl.
The first one of those was at the end of Super Bowl 27.
Right on 4th down to throw. Pressure, sacked by Jethro. And fumble. And Leon Lett. Look out, here he goes. Leon Lett. It's a fumble. It's a fumble. He had it knocked out of his hand. It's not going to be a touchdown. It's not.
You saw Leon, and then all of a sudden, there goes Don Beebe, and you're like, he's going to catch him. And I'm just looking down the sideline at the Jumbotron, and he's going to get him, and then sure enough, boom.
You come so close, yet you're so far away.
In Philadelphia, we don't have that many great plays to get excited about. So we get excited when other people, like the people we hate the most, like the Cowboys, do something like that.
What was going to be his greatest moment, scoring a touchdown in a Super Bowl for a defensive tackle, ends up being one of these blooper plays that everybody will remember about him in the history of the NFL.
How does a guy get to run that far and then screw up when he gets near the end zone? What a...
Leon came to the sideline, and I said, man, what happened? He said he was watching the Jumbotron, and he was trying to do Michael Irvin, where he put the ball out across the goal line, and he didn't see Don Beebe.
Don Beebe caught him from behind and knocked it out of his hand. Oh, Leon!
And at the time, it would have been a Super Bowl record for points. For 52 of them, it's hard to be upset about that.
From the absolute worst to the absolute best. The Cowboys are back on top of the mountain. They should stay there a while.
On Thanksgiving Day 1993, our number 3 foul-up played the GOAT, once again.
It wouldn't have been part of the lore of the NFL that it has become if the snow wasn't involved.
We fought a very tough football game against Miami that day.
It was a fun game to play.
Intercepted by Bill Bates.
Until the end of the game.
Miami's trying to kick a field goal, and if they make it, game's over. If they miss it, we win.
It's a 41-yarder. It's a first down kick, and it's blocked. It's blocked and rolling around at the 10-yard line.
You can see the ball spinning around on the white snow, and everybody's saying, "Get away, Peter, Peter, Peter," meaning stay away from the ball, stay away from the ball.
It's like a hand grenade. Don't touch it. It might blow up in your face.
This is Miami's ball.
One white jersey with a star on it come running out of nowhere.
He just needs to get the ball in his hand. No one knows why.
I think they get another shot. This is Miami's ball.
So they get another shot. This time, field goal good, we lose the game.
It was probably our fault. We hadn't had him on the field goal block team, and so our special teams coach wanted to put him on the field goal block team because of the conditions.
And it's blocked!
And so not having worked on the different situations, Leon was unsure about what to do after the ball was blocked.
Oh, Leon left! Leon left!
Oh, this is too good. This is, let's all bring the turkey out. Let's have some more. It's time to celebrate again.
After that game, we couldn't find Leon. Where was he? I mean, he's probably going to go kill himself. Leon was really upset about it, and I never forget a girl sent him a note and said, "Gosh, Leon, don't worry about it. Last year during the Super Bowl, there was this guy that was going in to score a touchdown and had the ball ripped out of his hands right before he scored. Don't worry about it. People make mistakes all the time." Happened to be the same guy.
Is there any way he could come back? We miss Leon. We need him back.
You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Now gets set for a play you'll probably never see again. The Bears whizzer wait while attempting to pass. Spots the Rams about to close in, so backward he goes.
Those who don't learn from history are doomed to foul up all over again, like Bob Greasy in Super Bowl VI.
When he was 9, his Pop Warner coach should have told him not to do that.
Weaving and weaving and weaving and weaving and weaving and losing ground. Fall down, Bob.
On the other hand, some players forget that it ain't over till it's over.
He strikes the ball. He wasn't down. He wasn't down. Nobody touched him. Yes, he was. No one touched him. Here comes what a doofus move. Kiwanuka had him, and then he let him go, and Tom Coughlin goes up to him and says, "What are you thinking?"
We're going to be sick about this one for forever.
Giants fans know the feeling.
The number 2 foul up of all time. The miracle at the Meadowlands.
We used to get beat by everyone.
There were years of just terrible football team. When Vermeil took over that football team, the Philadelphia Eagles probably could have got federal funds if they applied quick enough.
But we always said, thank God for the New York Giants, because back in the middle 70s, we were beating the New York Giants twice every year.
Late in 1978, the Eagles' patsies had become big blue bullies, and Philly's faint playoff hopes were drowning in a sea of Giants.
I thought that was going to be the first time we got beat by the Giants since I was here.
I was ready to get up out of my seat and say, hey, this game is over.
The late interception by the Giants will preserve a Giant victory. An upset win as the Giants lead 17-12, and we're inside 30 seconds. The Eagles have no timeouts.
We were going to shoot a gap. We were just going to try to make anything happen. We kind of went crashing into Joe Pisarcik. Everybody thought it was a cheap shot, and they started pushing and shoving.
And the Giant coach, Sean McVay, saw the Eagles pile on him, and for some reason he said, well, I don't want Joe to get hurt. Let's go with a handoff.
From here on in, Pisarcik can just fall on the football, and there is nothing the Eagles can do. And Pisarcik fumbles the football. It's picked up by Herman Edwards. 15, 10, 5, touchdown Eagles. I don't believe it.
Herman Edwards is running towards me, and it's like slow motion. My mind couldn't grasp it.
I said, oh, my God, this can't be happening. we're going to win this thing. They're going to lose. I mean, and then all hell breaks loose. I don't know how long it took Herman to get his breath, because I'm sure they smashed him.
It was like a rugby match, a scrum. Everybody's piled all over each other.
I was actually standing in the end zone. There was a New York City cop who was standing next to me who kept saying, "That can't count. That won't count." I finally said to him, "I hate to tell you, but they are lining up to kick an extra point. I think it counts."
Look, we'll take our victories however they come. But the Eagles didn't do anything to make that happen. That was a giant screw up, and I mean giant with a big letter and a little letter.
I remember we were ahead and we lost. And I'm like, how stupid can you be to run a play like that? Just fall on the ball.
It defines Joe Pisarcik. Any moment at the end of a game where somebody does something foolish to turn the ball over, it's called a Pisarcik moment.
And I know Joe, and so he's got a sense of humor about it.
I don't want to talk about that play. I figure I'm going to fall on the ball 3 times. And then the plays come in as called, and the rest is history.
Wait a minute. Here's a free foot. I don't believe it. The Eagles pick it up, and Herman Edwards runs it in for a touchdown.
I talked to the media afterwards, and then I went to the guys, myself and Larry Zonka, and they said, "Joe, what do you want to do?" I said, "Let's fly to Fort Lauderdale." We drove right to the airport, toothbrushes in our pockets, got on a plane and flew to Fort Lauderdale that night. Blew off a little steam and came back and tried to pick up our pants and start all over again.
Following our number 2 foul-up, the Giants fired their coaching staff and hired general manager George Young, who would build 2 Super Bowl champions.
The miracle of the Meadowlands really turned around the Giants. They draft Phil Simms.
The handoff sets the running play in motion. As a quarterback, we want to pocket the ball close to the body to protect it with both hands securely around it.
I think it started the Giants literally on their way to the Super Bowl, and it certainly was necessary for us to win.
Eagles are winners, Ronnie!
Sparked by our number 2 foul-up, the Eagles made the playoffs, and 2 years later, they were in the Super Bowl, bringing a familiar face with them.
1979, they traded me to Philadelphia.
It's like, give him a little extra. I mean, you know, take care of that guy.
The day I walked in the Eagles locker room, I come in there, and they were saying, "Thank you, Joe, for this, for that."
Every time Joe Pisarcik came into the locker room, I'd run to my locker real quick, and I'd yell over to Herman Edwards, "Herman, will you please do it just one more time?" And I'd take the ball, and I'd throw it in front of Pisarcik, and he'd scoop it up, and he'd go down the locker room, putting moves on everybody, and then spiking it down by the offensive lineman at the end of the locker room.
I don't believe it!
I would love to tell you what Joe Pisarcik would say to Herman Edwards and myself, but I can't do it here.
And now, the number 1 NFL foul-up of all time, Jim Marshall's wrong way run.
There was this Bonehead of the Year award. He was supposed to go to Dallas to receive the award. He got on the wrong plane and ended up in Chicago.
There are many reasons to remember Jim Marshall.
Jim Marshall played 19 years at defensive end and never missed a game.
The Lou Gehrig of pro football, playing one of the most physical positions, defensive end.
This guy was an Iron Man who played hurt all the time.
He nearly died with encephalitis.
He's had more operations probably than any football player in the history of the game.
He was in training camp, you know, he's throwing up a grape and he's and nearly choked to death. Nearly froze to death in a hunting accident. He was a skydiver.
One morning, I was lying in bed and I looked out and I saw some big puffy clouds. And I thought to myself how beautiful to be completely free and unattached from anything on earth.
He was and is as smart of a human being as I've ever known.
He could quote Teddy Roosevelt's inauguration speeches.
Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to be ranked with those poor souls who live in the gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat.
Jim Marshall belongs in the Hall of Fame. And it's a shame that when you think of Jim Marshall, you think of the wrong way run.
Myra straight back to pass. Looking. Does. Stops, throws, completes it to Kilmer up at the 30-yard line. Kilmer driving for the first down, loses the football. It's picked up by Jim Marshall, who's running the wrong way. Marshall is running the wrong way. And he's running it into the end zone the wrong way. Thinks he's scored a touchdown. He has scored a safety.
Jim comes chasing from the defensive end position down the field, picks up the ball, runs the wrong way, not for a touchdown, but for safety. He threw the ball up into the stands.
His teammates were running along the far side of the field, Russ, trying to tell him to back.
He was so excited, so elated. I said, Jim, you ran the wrong way.
If ever somebody needed the GPS, this is the guy who needed it.
The best part about it is how he flips the ball in celebration after he scored. Like, yeah, I just scored. Take that. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not in the right end zone.
I talked to him after the game. It was embarrassing. He had pride as a player, and he was completely devastated.
Norm Van Brocklin and the rest of the players came up to me and told me that just forget about it. Everyone makes a mistake. I think I said at the time, yeah, but I made mine in front of 40 million people.
It was an embarrassing moment for Jim. Got a lot of publicity.
Like the rest of the country saw it replayed over and over and over again. It was one of those things that you couldn't avoid.
Of course, everyone wants to know, how did you feel? And my response is, think of something that you did that you would never, ever want anybody to see you do, and let 100 million people watch it and question you about it.
He recovered. He was fine.
When he retired, he held the NFL record for most opponents' fumbles recovered.
On the day he committed our #1 foul-up, Marshall caused the fumble that Carl Eller returned for the winning touchdown.
I never get credit for that. I always talk about the wrong way run.
Most people that are real football fans see Jim Marshall in totality. We see all the ways that he was different than us. And yet for this one moment, Jim Marshall, who was Superman, he became just this guy that lost his way.